Hi everyone, let's talk about the City of Kings, which it was one of my most anticipated games when I did the list at the beginning of the year, and yeah, it's been really great to delve through. It's another big Kickstarter project that I'll try not to keep bringing up Gloomhaven because this is a very different game, but in the sense that they were both huge Kickstarter campaigns and kind of singular visions that Frank, the designer of City of Kings, in the same way that Isaac, the designer of Gloomhaven, they both had these very specific visions that were not what you would normally expect, something you were unlikely to see from a conventional game publisher. Kind of the essence of what you would hope a Kickstarter project to be, something that could only be made because it got funded through Kickstarter. And it really fits with, he's got this vision of how the game works, and just beautiful components in terms of the artwork, in terms of the level of quality of, just talking about the bags and things. The punch boards are all beautiful. It's a really professional thing. And yeah, it does have that, like I said in the playthrough, this is the deluxe version, so it's, got all of the, realistic tokens and things that definitely, it would be fine playing it with the cardboard chits that the normal game would have, but they are really nice, wooden tokens that just add to all of this stuff. It's a weird thing to keep going on about those bags, but they are lovely bags, and I want them for everything. The game itself. So, I am not a fan, I've talked before, I'm not really a fan of, heavy dice-based, luck-based games at all. It's just not my thing. I can see that they've got their place and they've got their devoted fans and things, but they're not for me at all. It's not really what I enjoy. City of Kings takes the more deterministic approach where that I really like. It's, if your character's attack is 1, they're going to do a damage when they attack. There's no roll the dice to see if they do it or not. They're just going to do it. And that's not to say that it makes combat any easier. The enemies in this plenty of times are really hard to fight against. But it's just great having that. I do like, say in Arkham Horror the card game, I love that stage of everyone's working together and I can do this, I can contribute this, we could do this and this, we come up with this amazing plan, but it falls apart for me when then we go, okay, then shall we roll the dice and see if any of that happened? In this, it's gonna happen. You can add the luck element to it. I will say that it definitely does lose a little bit of, it has a little bit of excitement when you are, rolling the dice to see if you do really well or something like that, to see if you do extra damage, or say in, as I said, I wasn't going to keep bringing it up, but say in Gloomhaven where it's got a deck of cards rather than a dice that's always random, and you are, dreading something terrible happening, but hoping for that double card. I'll say that does, as much as I want to be this staunch, deterministic is better and why would I want any of this, it is nice having a little bit. And when I knew that the luck element was in the game, you could increase your luck stat and roll a dice to possibly increase your damage. I was thinking before we got the game, I'm not going to want to do that. I am all about the one attack is 1 damage. But Rach started taking it in our games, and I found that, it's definitely, it's not an absolutely necessary part of the game, but I really like how it's implemented. For a start, you can increase your luck stat and get to choose from the dice, so give yourself, a little bit more control over this random element that you've put in. And it's not, I'll say it's not a massive thing, because at the most you're going to increase your damage by 2, but sometimes that's absolutely vital. Sometimes it is, you are all tense because we can't get this level up. We are just going to have to really hope that we get lucky with these dice rolls and that we get this extra damage. Sometimes it is really vital, but in the sense that it's at the most increasing your damage by 1 or 2, and at worst it's going to halve your damage, which could be, a really massive difference if you've increased your attack by loads and loads. But often it's not that bad a thing. It's a really nice system. Is what I'm trying to say, and something that I would normally not want to deal with. I'd say that the scavenge and gathering dice can be a bit more frustrating, because that can feel like a more standard dicey thing of just it's good that it adds a bit of danger. Increasing your gathering stat is great. You're going to gather more with one action and fill your workers up much quicker, but you are adding that luck factor. But sometimes if you just got 2 gather dice and it's just, I know that it's unlikely, but it has happened where it's just, attention, and then enemies have come out a few times, and if they come out at the wrong time, like, you can, all of this is kind of, I say first impressions, I've played this about 7 times now, I think. Maybe 8 including the playthrough, or is it 7 including the playthrough? That's not important. They're still the first impressions. I'm not trying to make any big statements about balance or anything like that. But it's certainly happened, no matter how unlikely, that monsters have kept coming out, and towards the end, that can be the deciding line over whether you won or lost. It can be, we desperately needed this item to increase this stat to be able to fight this person, and although we had this many opportunities to keep rolling that dice, it just kept coming with attention and throwing far more things in the way that we could deal with. And that is just kind of, you shouldn't win the game all the time anyway. But it is, not a huge issue, but a bit of a frustrating thing. Whereas I would have said before we played that the luck would have been more of a thing that I didn't like. Anyway, that's just a little thing. So, the deterministic part of the game means that, a big part of the luck is gone, and that it is a much more puzzly game, more so than Legends of Andor, which is another cooperative game that's more like a puzzle than the standard dice-based ones. And I really, really love that. I really love the puzzle aspect of games in general. It's why I tend to love, the so many Euro games that are behind me. I love that kind of planning aspect and trying to, being presented with a problem based on all the variables of the game that we're playing and trying to solve that. And City of Kings does that brilliantly. The story is kind of teaching you the game as well as telling a story. And while we're not very far into the story, because we've played it multiple times because we wanted to win before we moved on, and we've played scenarios as well, which are separate things. Well, the scenario was in the playthrough, if you saw that. The story's good for teaching you the thing and giving you different aspects of the game to focus on. Like the playthrough was a scenario concentrating on building. That was going to be your main focus. There are ones concentrating on combat or concentrating on escorting people. There are really different ways of playing it, and you have to you do have to specialize your party. Like in a 2-player game, we have found that everyone that we've played, we have to kind of split off the juices, which you might expect, where I'm going to be the tankier one, I'm going to be the one that maybe has the better worker stats, and you're going to be the one that's really good at attacking, or maybe I need to be really good at healing because you're good at attacking. You have to kind of balance yourselves out in that way. You can't both be the crazy damage people, because you need a bit of utility, or you need that if neither of you have upgraded your workers and you need to do some building or something in that scenario, then you're going to be stuck. It's going to be great when an enemy comes out, but when you need your workers for things, which you might in a combat-focused scenario as well, you might really need resources because you need to get them back to the City of Kings. So the resources go into the old barn, and you can spend them on the really, really fancy equipment cards that have come out. The equipment cards, a little bit of an issue with that as well, where there's this great big deck of equipment cards and we just shuffle them, and you don't get that many. I know you can increase the number that come out by gathering item parts and spending 3 at a time to reveal a new item available in the shop to buy. But this has happened in games as well, where there are things that give you not many stats but don't cost many at all. Maybe cost 1 resource and increase 1 stat. And there are things that cost loads of resources and, as you might expect, give you a lot more stats. Because it's just a great big deck that's shuffled, there have been some games where all we could draw, even when we were forcing ourselves to try and draw more and more things, we just kept getting really, really expensive stuff that we couldn't afford at all, or maybe things that needed cloth, and cloth was in the furthest corner of the City of Kings, and it was going to take us so long to actually get it back that we just couldn't get equipment in that game. And that's not the only way that you can get things, but it is a bit frustrating if all of these, say, end game cards come out from the beginning, and that's all that you get. It's another unlikely scenario, maybe, but it's happened to us a couple of times, and it's definitely that case where I'm kind of offering, problems without solutions. I don't know how you would even balance that, because when do you decide that even if you separated them or shuffled a certain number, easy, medium, hard items to get, when do you decide when you've moved into a different stage of the game? So yeah, I've got no idea how that could be changed, or even if it's an issue worth having, but it's definitely something that's, something that stuck out a little bit in our games. And yeah, I want to say, rather than just entirely great things about it. So yeah, it's definitely a really puzzly thing, and most of the people that weren't fans when they got their Kickstarter copies, I think that some of it may be based on that maybe they didn't know that it was quite so puzzly, rather than that normal fantasy, really empowered creature thing. I really like. I've seen people that weren't so happy with the banners. I really like that system. People want, not minis, but, maybe standees with art for all of the different factions and things. I don't mind at all that it's represented just by a banner, and, the paragraph that's on the back of each of the tiles is, a really nice, evocative story of the ones that we've seen so far. And yeah, it's nice imagining that there is this great big war band that we are fighting against that, have these individual fighters with all of these crazy abilities. That does, for me anyway, it explains away, the wildly varied things that you can have in there, which is another big plus point for the game, actually. Those bags full of tokens that can just lead to such a ridiculous number of combinations in the game. I can't remember quite how many, but it was a staggering number, as you can imagine, when you're combining all of these different sets of tiles. And so yeah, they can do wildly different things and come up with, sometimes they come up with combinations that cancel each other out, but sometimes they come up with things that are really hard to fight against. Like, say they put poison in certain squares and then they knock you back into those squares. Sometimes they can be real, devils to fight. One little thing about that, though, is that the enemies are so strong often that it is in your best interest to do everything that you can. And again, this is just me speaking from a few games of experience, so this isn't gospel, but it seems that the thing you need to do is really, really desperately focus on killing those enemies before they get to go, because if they get to go, they are most likely going to really, really mess you up. They are not messing around, and maybe that's the intention, but it is a bit of a shame when you lay out these creatures and you see, oh, it's going to do this and this, that's a cool combination, and then often we kill them before they get to do that. But yeah, it's another just little thing. But yeah, I really, really like the game in general. A lot of the things that I was just anticipating that I would like about it are really, really great things, where it's this game where we are not just these big avatars. We are those avatars that are exploring the world and taking down baddies and things like that, but we also have this separate part where we have workers, and we are doing worker movement and resource gathering and things like that. It's a really nice extra dimension to the game that it's not just what are we going to do. Maybe do I really need to focus on getting my worker to do things, not just in building scenarios. As I said, maybe you really need them to get equipment and things. There's so much to like about this. It's just, yeah, I would be aware that it is a very puzzly experience, a very head scratching. Sometimes it's not a really, really long game, but it definitely requires a lot of thought, and it's one that after a scenario we have to say, okay, we need to put this away and give ourselves a rest after it and build our mental faculties up until the next one. But it's definitely a really rewarding experience when you do. And so yeah, the playthrough is there so you can see hopefully the main elements of the game that are there. But I really, really enjoyed my time with it, and it's definitely one of those experiences where it's on Kickstarter right now, which I should have mentioned at the start, for a reprint that adds another character and adds more stories to it, as well as the loads that are in this. And as I said, the story mode is kind of teaching you the game as you go, teaching you maybe the different aspects that you might not have focused on like this one's all about combat, this one's all about exploration, things like that. But yeah, if this can just keep being expanded with stories and things, similarly with Gloomhaven, I'm not saying that it needs it. It's got a lot of content, in the box. As you can see, it's a huge box. But the fact that it is getting more is a really, really good sign, and I hope it carries on. There were probably loads more things that I wanted to say, but yeah, this was meant to be shorter than the first time I did this, but it's probably ended up just as long. I'm going to stop talking now. You can see in the playthrough and hopefully see for yourself whether it would be one for you. But that's the City of Kings. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you for the next game. Bye.